At 75, I often find myself moving slowly, but my memories travel fast. They roam through the rooms of the house I built with my own hands. Well, not literally, but close enough. This home has stood with me through storms that life hurled at me long before my age did. Every wall carries my laughter, every window remembers my tears, and every tile has felt the rhythm of my footsteps as I chased after my children when they were small. My husband, Rahim, used to say, "Maria, this house breathes because you live in it." Now, years after he passed, I still sometimes pause and feel him here. The faint echo of his hum in the kitchen, the warmth of his coat still hanging in the back closet because I could never bring myself to remove it. This home is not just a building, it is the last place where my life felt whole. When my son Ian called 3 months ago and said he needed a place to stay just for a while, I didn't hesitate. A mother never does. Even at 75, a mother's heart still believes a grown son will walk in and say, "Amy, I missed you." Instead, he arrived with his wife, Saba, carrying suitcases and plans I didn't know about. "Temporary, Amy," Ian said, kissing my forehead. "Just until we settle things." But temporary began stretching like old rubber, losing its original shape. And Saba, well, she didn't waste time revealing how unwelcome she felt in my home. The first week, she walked around with a wrinkled nose, as if the air offended her. "The curtains are outdated," she announced loudly, not even looking at me. "And the furniture is too vintage." She said vintage, like one says infected. One afternoon, when I returned from the garden, I found her shifting my living room around, dragging my wooden table across the floor with loud scrapes. "I'm making space," she said without a smile. "We need the house to feel more suitable for us." Suitable for us. A phrase that stung more than I let on. I had spent 42 years making this house suitable for my own family, and now I felt like a guest inside it. It only worsened. She started entering my room without asking, tidying things that didn't need tidying, moving my drawers around, accidentally placing my prayer mat under a stack of clothes. The little invasions accumulated like dust in corners, small enough to ignore at first, but heavy enough to choke eventually. Every evening, when Ian returned from work, Saba painted herself as a saint. "Your mother forgets things," she'd tell him loudly. "We should consider reorganizing the house." Your mother. Not Amy. Not even Maria. Just your mother. Like I was some distant relative. Ian, tired and distracted, barely noticed my discomfort. He trusted her words more than my silence. I tried to convince myself it was temporary, that she was adjusting, that I was overthinking. Age can make you doubt your own instincts. But the quiet in my chest told me something else. Love wasn't living in this house anymore, only tension. One evening, as I stood washing dishes, I overheard Saba whisper sharply, "I can't live like this, Ian. This house should be ours. She's old. She doesn't even need half these rooms." My hand froze on the plate. Ours? Rooms I didn't need? The betrayal began not with a loud moment, not with a scream or a fight, but with a whisper behind a door. A whisper that sliced deeper than any shout ever could. And I realized, as the water ran cold over my hands, that something was shifting in my own home. And not in my favor. The evening it happened felt ordinary at first, quiet, peaceful, almost deceptively calm. I had gone for my usual walk, slowly circling the neighborhood with my shawl wrapped tightly around my shoulders. The winter breeze wasn't harsh yet, but at 75, even the gentlest cold felt like a warning. My neighbor, Mrs. Qureshi, waved from her porch, and I stopped to talk for a minute. She asked how things were at home, and I gave her the same soft smile I had been giving everyone lately. "Oh, you know," I said, "just adjusting to the house being fuller." She looked at me with a knowing sadness. Perhaps she saw the truth. I wasn't ready to speak yet. By the time I walked back to my street, the sun had slipped behind the rooftops, leaving the sky a faded gray. I reached my gate, pushed it open, and walked up to the front door. My fingers, stiff from the cold, fumbled for the key. I slid it into the lock and turned. It didn't move. I frowned and turned it again, harder. Nothing. A strange, sinking feeling tightened inside my chest. I stepped back, tried again, pushing the door a little. Still nothing. The key simply wouldn't turn. At first, I tried to be reasonable. Perhaps the lock jammed, I thought. Old locks can be stubborn. I knocked gently. Saba? Ayan? It's me. Silence. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. The sinking feeling grew heavier, like wet sand filling my heart. I rang the doorbell, and after a long moment, I heard footsteps inside, soft, hesitant, and absolutely unwelcome. The curtain to the side window shifted slightly. I saw the edge move, the faint shadow of someone standing behind it. And then she appeared, Saba. Her face lit not by surprise but by something colder. Something satisfied. She opened the door only a crack, just enough for her voice to slip out, sharp and dismissive. You're back late. I was just on my walk, I said, confused. Why is the door locked? She shrugged. We changed the lock. The words hit me like a physical blow. Changed the lock. I repeated, unable to understand. Why would you do that without telling me? Because, she said, crossing her arms, we needed security. People come and go. It's not safe. I stared at her, my own hands trembling slightly. People? I am the one who lives here. She sighed dramatically, as if my existence was the inconvenience. Well, you should have told us you were leaving. We didn't know when you were coming back. I swallowed hard. Saba, give me the new key. Her lips curled into a smirk I will never forget. There is no key for you. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My home. My own house. The rooms I had cleaned, the kitchen I had cooked in, the memories I had guarded for decades, closed to me like I was an outsider. A stranger. I think, she continued, it's better if you stay with friends tonight. We need some space. You crowd the house and honestly, it's stressful. Stressful. My presence stressful. At that moment, I realized she wasn't just thoughtless. She wasn't impulsive. She was intentional. Cold. Calculated. And my son? My Ayan? He wasn't there at the door. He didn't defend me. He didn't even come to see what was happening. He knew. He agreed. My voice cracked as I tried one last time. Saba, this is my home. She raised an eyebrow. For now. The door slammed in my face before I could respond. I stood there in the dark, holding a key that had lost its meaning, staring at a house that suddenly felt like a stranger. My legs weakened beneath me, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Not there. I turned and walked toward the only place that still felt safe, Mrs. Qureshi's porch. As soon as she opened the door and saw my face, she understood everything without a word. Come in, Maria, she whispered, guiding me inside. And as I stepped into her warm, welcoming home, one truth echoed louder than my heartbreak. They had changed the lock, but they had also unlocked my resolve. Morning light has a strange way of revealing things the night tried to hide. When I woke up on Mrs. Qureshi's sofa, wrapped in her soft pink shawl, the events of the night before felt unreal at first, like a cruel dream I could simply shake away. But the heaviness in my chest reminded me it was no dream. My son's wife changed the locks on my home. I whispered to myself, the words tasting bitter. Speaking them aloud made the betrayal feel even sharper. Mrs. Qureshi insisted I drink chai before doing anything else. Her kindness filled the room, warm like the tea between my hands. You cannot let them walk over you, she said firmly. You didn't raise a son just to be thrown out of your own house at 75. Her words dug deep, not because they hurt, but because they were true. By mid-morning, I had gathered everything I needed. The property papers, the ownership documents, even the old will my husband had drafted years ago. And tucked behind his framed photograph, exactly where he once told me to keep it, was my spare key. A key no one else knew existed. I held it tightly as I walked back toward my home. My home. Those two words steadied me. When I reached the front gate, the house looked peaceful, too peaceful for the storm brewing inside it. Through the curtains, I could see movement. Saba, probably starting her morning like nothing had happened. I wondered if she expected me to return quietly, or not return at all. With a deep breath, I inserted the hidden key into the lock. It turned instantly. The soft click of the door opening felt like justice. I stepped inside. The air smelled different, my home but invaded. A purse thrown carelessly on the sofa. Shoes lying near the front door. the sound of running water coming from my bathroom. And then, from the bedroom hallway, I heard the unmistakable sound of Saba's feet padding across the floor. She emerged wearing my shawl, the embroidered one my mother had stitched for me decades ago. Seeing her wrapped in it sparked something fierce inside me. "Oh," she said, freezing mid-step when she saw me. "You're here." "Yes," I replied calmly. "In my house." Her eyes widened, flickering with panic for just a second before hardening again. "You shouldn't just walk in like that." "We're not." I cut her off. "Save your breath." Without raising my voice, I walked past her, opened the wardrobe she had taken over, and began pulling out her neatly folded clothes. One by one, I stacked them in a laundry basket. Her shoes, her makeup bag, her scarves, all of it. "Excuse me," she sputtered. "What do you think you're doing?" "Returning your space to you," I said. "Outside." She followed me to the front door shouting, "Ian! Ian!" He stumbled out of the guest room, still half asleep. When he saw me carrying the basket toward the lawn, his face drained of color. "Amy, what's going on?" I didn't answer him. Not yet. The time for explanations had passed the moment they shut the door on me. I walked outside, placed the basket neatly at the edge of the lawn, and went back for the next load. Saba screamed behind me, "You can't do this. How dare you?" I turned toward her slowly, holding her designer handbag, one she flaunted at every gathering. "How dare I?" I replied, my voice steady as stone. "You locked me out of my own house. You changed the locks. You treated me like a burden. Today, I am simply returning the message you sent." I placed her handbag on top of the pile of her things, then brushed my hands together like wiping away dust. Ian finally spoke, voice trembling. "Amy, please, let's talk." I reached into my folder and handed him a sealed envelope. "This is the only conversation left," I said softly. Inside was the legal notice, their official eviction. They had 48 hours to leave. As the morning sun rose higher, shining across the lawn littered with Saba's belongings, I felt a calm strength settle inside me. They had tried to remove me, but they were the ones leaving. The next 2 days passed in a strange mixture of tension and serenity. Every morning, I would sit in the living room with a cup of tea, watching the sunlight pool on the floorboards. Outside, Saba and Ian moved their things from the house to their car, muttering curses and complaints, but I did not intervene. I did not yell. I did not curse them back. The sweet revenge I had been waiting for wasn't loud. It wasn't in shouting matches or arguments. It was in the quiet reclaiming of what was mine, my home, my space, my dignity. I watched them struggle, carrying their bags, knocking over the roses in my garden, tripping on the small stones I had laid on the path. And yet, I stayed seated, calm, almost meditative. Neighbors began to peek from behind curtains or over fences, whispering to one another. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others simply smiled, as if they had been waiting for this moment just as eagerly as I had. I caught Mrs. Qureshi's eye from across the street. She gave me a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that justice had its own pace, and it had arrived. Saba tried one last desperate attempt at control. She stormed back into the house after leaving a suitcase by the gate. "Maria, you can't treat me like this. This is harassment," she shrieked. Her voice was sharp, but tired, lacking the smugness she had carried for weeks. I rose slowly, feeling the weight of every year, every experience, every injustice I had endured. "Harassment," I said softly, deliberately calm. "No, Saba. What you are witnessing is consequence. This house has always been mine. And this," I gestured around at the garden, the lawn, the home that had been my sanctuary, "is simply a reflection of your choices." Her lips trembled. Ian tried to step in, to mediate, to make excuses. "Amy, please." But I held up a hand, a single, quiet gesture that demanded silence. "Ian, I raised you to be better than this. And yet you stood by while she disrespected your mother. I do not rejoice in your discomfort, but understand this. The house will always be mine. And the law agrees." There was no argument left in them. The bravado had drained. They had pushed too far, underestimated the quiet strength of a 75-year-old woman who had survived loss, heartbreak, and betrayal. By late afternoon they were gone. The driveway was empty except for the scattered leaves, the crates of Saba's belongings, and the faint sound of the wind rustling through the trees. I walked slowly around the garden, touching the petals of my roses, feeling the familiar grooves in the brick path under my fingers. Everything felt right again. My home, my sanctuary, my memories, they were intact. I spent the evening sitting on my porch, sipping tea and watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. For a long time, I didn't think about revenge in the traditional sense, getting even, making them suffer. The sweetest revenge, I realized, was simply reclaiming my life, my peace, and my dignity. It was showing them, without cruelty, that their actions could not diminish the person I had spent 75 years becoming. I smiled softly to myself, a deep, contented smile that carried both relief and quiet triumph. In the end, they had learned nothing, but I had proven everything. A lifetime of resilience, patience, and quiet determination could overcome even the most heartless betrayal. And as night fell over the house I built, the house that had held me through every storm, I felt a profound peace. No one could take it from me, not my son, not his wife, not even time. At 75, I had learned that power did not always roar. Sometimes it simply sat on the porch, sipped tea, and watched the sun set over a life well lived.